Tonight, a warning about a popular and powerful antibiotic. Consumer investigator Jim Strickland discovered the FDA is deciding whether to issue strong new warnings about potentially damaging side effects. And Jim, those warnings would come too late, though, for at least 2 local families.
Justin, that's right. The generic name is Levofloxacin. The brand name you may know is Levaquin. A Duluth woman says just 2 pills killed her husband. A Carroll County man blames the 7 pills he took for ruining his life. Each man had a common infection and a tragic outcome.
Best shape of his life at 41. Although Chris was always an athlete and stayed in shape, he was at his prime.
His wife says fitness enthusiast Chris Danley had just aced a physical. After feeling ill on a Saturday morning, an urgent care doctor prescribed Levofloxacin.
But he couldn't tolerate it after 2 pills.
2 pills?
2 pills. He just was stiff and just suffering. Going into the hospital and getting to the hospital, we still didn't know what we were dealing with.
Kathy Danley says their young children's last vision of their father was a man crying in pain in a hospital emergency room, less than 48 hours after the first dose.
That's really hard to get out of my mind that I couldn't help him, and nobody could.
3 days later, Danley was dead. The autopsy found rhabdomyolysis, a disease that destroys muscle. The likely cause, quote, an adverse outcome to this drug.
Absolutely, he was poisoned.
She's not alone in saying so.
You think the pill killed him?
I think the pill killed him.
Here in Columbia, South Carolina, state government funds its own drug watchdog agency. I showed the Danley autopsy report to the man who runs it.
When you read a report of a patient who takes 1 or 2 doses of drug, has side effects that occur almost instantaneously, goes to the hospital, and then is dead within a day or 2, there's no doubt that this is a terrible side effect and a terrible tragedy.
Dr. Charles Bennett has petitioned the FDA for tougher warnings about the drug's side effects on human cells and the brain. 18 months ago, the FDA did strengthen warnings about the potential for nerve damage called peripheral neuropathy. The warnings came too late for Jeff Stevens of Carroll County. He took 7 Levofloxacin pills 2 years ago for a sinus infection. This is video of him playing on the beach in Australia only 1 month earlier.
Pretty much I went from an athlete to a cripple.
We watched one of the intravenous procedures he endures twice a week. Prognosis uncertain.
I may be one of those that's crippled for the rest of my life. It's terrifying.
Levofloxacin is part of a family of 6 antibiotics called fluoroquinolones. An FDA report in 2013 found Levofloxacin is responsible for half the severe nerve damage cases blamed on those drugs.
Their bodies are falling apart. It is horrific.
Stephen's fiancée is now part of an international campaign to help patients and educate doctors.
Most victims are either misdiagnosed or labelled as crazy, and they're just passed around and left to suffer.
Kathy Danley's goal is clear.
If I can get involved in this drug somehow coming off the market one day, then that's the least I can do.
Now, a dozen companies make the generic based on the Levaquin formula from Johnson & Johnson. A spokesperson for that company told us, quote, "We are aware of the citizen petitions and we are evaluating them. When used according to product labeling, Levaquin has been proven to have a favorable benefit-risk profile." Levaquin sales hit $1.3 billion in 2010. That's the year before it went generic. The FDA has received reports of more than 1,200 deaths blamed on this formula. Now, those are just complaints. Nothing confirmed about the link between Levaquin and
here's the
those
thing.
things.
I mean, before you'd ever want to put this in your mouth, you'd want to know, you know, was this even on the table? So here's the question. Did Chris have any sort of knowledge about this?
Well, here's the deal. That syndrome that Chris Danley had was called rhabdo for short. And it's listed as a rare occurrence deep down on the pill insert, a rare occurrence that was reported by patients after the drug went to market. There's no real official warning on the label that patients would most likely read.
Wow, Jim.